Hey, folks, it's Jay Ruane, and if you're listening to this or watching this podcast, please be sure to give us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're on. You ready, Seth?
I'm ready.
Hello, and welcome to the Law Firm Blueprint. I'm one of your hosts, Jay Ruane. He is Seth Price, and we're here to talk to you all about running your law firm. Seth, I got a question for you. I want to know how you deal with it because it's starting to creep back up again, and it's the topic that is difficult when you're not in a contingency firm, although could be difficult in a contingency firm, and that is bonuses and how to handle bonuses. I have traditionally ascribed to the theory that if you are an associate working for me and you want to make more money, go out and shake the trees. Find some cases, you get 50% of anything that you generate. I've got one associate who seems to be doing that, doing well, making a piece of every case that he brings in and he works. Others want to have money coming in by way of a bonus. So for us flat fee lawyers in criminal defense, for the hourly lawyers in family law, maybe flat fee in a trust and estates practice, you've had a lot of different immigration, right? You've had a lot of different practice areas. How do you handle bonuses in a non-contingency operation?
So I think you hit the nail on the head. My attitude, and you've sort of morphed over time, I've been very loud and proud of our formula, is that we leave all the money on the table in our deal. A 25, 50 deal allows people to crush it. They can, the way we set it up, 50 cents on the dollar is more than you would take home if you ran your own firm.
Sure.
Right? So you're better off with us than without us. On the stuff that we bring in, 25 cents on the dollar. We now have people managing practice groups and they get an override on people that they manage. There's opportunities for advancement and growth. But we historically have not done a discretionary bonus beyond that because the whole point is put everything on the table and fully incentivize has been my attitude. We got smacked in the head when we started PI because it's a different ethos. People within that group it's a much more, there's a more of a cowboy mentality in a good way, and that people are expecting that. And so we started with stuff that was what feels right. I think at the end of the day, and everybody has a different philosophy. More sophisticated firms may do it as a percentage of profits, which I would love. That's very, very complicated from my point of view, not from theirs because they're sophisticated. But I think that the sooner you get to a percentage of revenue, at very least, again, percentage of profit's better, but most people listening to this are never going to get to that. But if you
not everybody has John Knockhazel, running the numbers in your office.
But assuming that you have something that everybody's rowing the same direction. Again, incentivization, we've talked about this before. You can incentivize good or incentivize bad. And frankly, incentivization generally, if you're not careful, can take you to places you don't want to go, right? There's like real estate agents. They're incentivized to close a deal because they get paid. Do they care if you saved $2,000 or $20,000 or $30,000? No, because they're getting a percentage of that macro deal. They just need to close the effing deal, which doesn't necessarily align with you. And you have to be careful where you see lawyers churning, not pushing something to litigation, or taking a settlement offer because yes, they could get a little bit more, but incentives can go off. But I believe that most people, the sooner you get away from discretionary bonuses to something more, it's there. So I'll leave that. What are your thoughts on that?
So you have recently joined me in the non-lawyer sales part thing for criminal defense, right?
We have a lawyer sales.
Yeah, you have a lawyer salesperson. So if I work for you and I generate a criminal case and I bring it in, does the lawyer salesperson get involved, or are they clearly only touching?
No, they're out. Same as your, and because they're a lawyer, I can give them a percentage, or a fee per, et cetera. So to me, those are the easy ones because there's metrics. And look, if you've had an amazing year, you want to do something, who am I to say no? But generally, my attitude is, we pay a lot. We're in a competitive job market. We don't want somebody guessing. Nobody should be working for the bonus. They should be working knowing what they can make and that that's what's there. I think it gets more complex when you leave that world and you move into the non-lawyer space where I've had a lot more adjectives. I feel confident we are doing right by lawyers 100%, putting everything on the table. Nobody, I don't think in all these years anybody's come looking for one or asking for one, in the sense that once we got our act together with the 25, 25, 50 model, it's been years, and in PI with percentage of revenue where you know what you're getting. It's not discretionary. You brought this in. Now the issue becomes, if somebody in PI, a case gets kicked for a year, we have a big case with a major defendant, and they just fired their national counsel and brought in a different counsel for this case. That's but it's likely not going to resolve this year because of that, because these new guys have to bill their hours and make their money. Now, all that percentage is great, but if your person doesn't make the money, either you're going to make it up or they're leaving. Nobody's sitting there. If the person's on track earnings, something we see in the sales world, I could talk about that from the BluShark perspective. On track earnings is a standard thing in sales. You get a base and a commission on top, and you have an on track earning. And you have people that if they're used to making 240 a year, and this year something breaks, a big client doesn't sign at the last minute, and they're at a buck 60, 200, whatever it is, you have a risk factor of losing them. And so all of that's well and good until they don't make enough based on your formula, in which case you have a risk factor.
Yeah, I mean, a major risk factor of having to put out, tens of thousands of dollars. And say you have somebody who's generated a case, they're working it, they leave, they get that true up to get them to that point, and they're like, hey, I see on the coming year my revenue's not going to match. I can leave, but then they're taking a percentage of all of these cases with them for, because they generated the case. So they're either taking the file with them or it's staying with you, and somebody new has to work it. I can see that being a big problem. I mean, I guess
it's funny because you see this big law deals with this all the time. I remember, and you've seen this. Howard and Simon was a pretty famous. When law firms get an FU number, settlement, whatever it is, big case, that's one of those moments where it's a risk factor for the firm. You see people pick up and bail, and
yeah.
And I think that you've seen in Connecticut, firms, it is so, and that was without even getting paid. So, we are dealing with, it is, that's on the macro level, but big law has that as a real deal. Even smaller firms, I'm sure, when there's a big number where somebody's like, I'm close to retirement, I got my number, I'm gone. Or I want to do something else, or you're a pain in my ass, and now I have enough money that if I don't, I can build something somewhere else for 2 years, whatever it is, it's not nothing. So, to me, I want everything transparent, but just like the incentivization for salespeople, if you incentivize something, it's going to happen,
right,
good or bad, and you got to be careful.
So I have incentivized 50% on anything that you generate, and I've gone forward and said to lawyers, anything you generate this quarter, you get 100%. I just want to see if you can do it. And I still have associates that aren't generating a thing. So that's not good. That's right. Not an incentive for them.
I love Jay for this, right? You're showing that you can't. And if you listen to our friend Andrew Finkelstein, he's going to tell you, I don't want it. Go generate the business for them. That's not their business. So, yes, I know, just like you cutting off Avo back in the day to see what would happen. You did another bold move. It's interesting. I would say that, the next step, let me throw this at you. What about staff? Now, again, some staff is incremental.
That's where I was going with this.
I knew it.
Staff? How do you properly classify? Like with a contingency practice, I think you could take, okay, we're going to do 1% of everything settled this quarter goes into a pool, and everybody in that pod is going to get a piece of it depending on their role in things. I can see how it's very easy to do. What do you do in an hourly billing or a flat fee? How do you?
It's interesting.
Bonus.
We have historically put as much as possible into the salary. Like that's been, again, for a bunch of reasons. Like to me, and I'll give you an example. I'm going to come back to this in a second. Answer your question because I've seen this. I've had a schism where in the PI department, which may have historically had slightly lower bases, an extra paycheck at the end of the year. Something like that. Meaning, and that it was tough because I now have issues within my firm. I mean, most people may not have this issue, but you're going to have this as you open different practice areas with different, the way and what makes people tick in the PI department may be different than other areas. And we just had an issue with like incentivization on hitting certain KPIs. And it became an issue because somebody rolled it out to one department and it was not clear. Like we had an internal issue where we needed to clear it. But not ironic, but we are dealing with the idea that just like your children, just because one kid gets something, should somebody else. Now, there may be bitterness, and you see that with the kids, but there are times when some kid needs something, has earned it, or what have you, that the carrot may work really well for one kid, whereas the other kid gets a steady allowance and doesn't need it. Where the other kid, if you give him an allowance, he's not going to do anything. You have to actually incentivize behavior where you get something for doing it. I'm using that as I'm trying to work on the analogy. It's not perfect, but we have seen different sensibilities, and it's something to watch out for. What you're going to get very quickly is if you think people don't talk, they do. And we've run into issues where we want to be able to do things differently, and it's not always seamless. It makes sense to us, but it may not make sense to the person in the trenches.
Yeah, I mean, what do you do? Do you take it do you create a profit pool out of that practice group, regardless of what it is, and say, okay, then sit down with everybody and say, what's a fair distribution? Because then people can get
No, I
a
mean
nose better
this.
joint.
I
It
think
doesn't have to come from the top down. Do you talk about, hey, we put it all on the table in your offer? There are no bonuses with this job
we do
in the
nominal,
interview process.
right. We don't go as extreme, but we're not hiding the ball either. This is not, there are places where they pay. Look, if you're making 40 grand, there damn well better be some bonuses,
Right.
right? Right. Versus, things, and like there are bonuses and incentives, but
So
that's our.
so I have paralegals that are now making six figures, 100 grand as their salary. And I did not, when we, we explained our reasons for increasing their salary and expectations and having those, I did not, to my own error, say, and by the way, there is no annual bonus anymore because you're kind of getting it, with a
Even the way you're
25,000.
saying it,
But
that's
then
negative.
Christmas came last year and I got a Slack message, hey, so what? No bonuses? And I'm like, you got a $25,000 raise this year.
But this, okay, gotcha. So this is, let me take what you did. And Jay does everything bigger and better. I'm now tipping. I mean, I've always tipped, like I'm 20%. I do this, but I'm now Jay Ruane tipping. I was in a
30
sports
plus,
bar.
30 plus percent. Always.
No. It wasn't that. I mean, I haven't gotten there yet. But what I'm doing, I'm doing I got a table at a crowded sports bar with my whole family. The kids aren't drinking. They can see this lady cringing. I handed her $20 at the beginning of the night, said, thank you so much for getting us this table. Whole dynamic changed. We then tipped on the meal, but going in, this was a person that was bitter. I've always tipped on the last night at a hotel
Oh, you tip
when
it the
I'm
first
checking
night
out.
now. I
No.
tip,
Meaning cleaning the room. I just
right,
it's how I was raised. You tip on the way out, but
right.
and I don't really want anything more. They clean the room. I don't need it. But anyway. I'm trying to channel my inner Jay Ruane. That said, let's take this. You have a person. They're at 60 grand. They ask for a raise. You have a bunch of choices. You can go to 65. You go to 70. You go to 65 with a 5K guaranteed bonus or target bonus. I say target because once you say a number, you don't give it, you're fucked, right?
Right.
So the question is, if you got a person at 60, you need to raise them. What's the ideal mix? You could do a $2,500 bonus and put them at 6750. You could do 70. And so essentially you went to 70 using your example right there. And
Right.
you could say, look, and again, it's part of the conversation. Do you want it in salary or do you want it in bonus? And I see many new hires want the salary so they can count on it, they can bank it, they know what's going on. And I think that if it's presented that way, where it's a choice and they're part of the conversation, you don't get the surprise, why no bonus,
Right.
versus, hey, I have $25,000 to raise. Would you prefer it to be, do you want 85 as your base with a $15,000 bonus? Do you want 90, 10? And again, there are times when you care and times you don't, but the advantage of the bonus is if somebody leaves, you don't owe it, right?
Right.
You have the time value of money until then. It's not great for cash flow at the end when you have to do it, but
Well, yeah.
it's that balancing act. In theory, you could be doing the putting money aside, but we're never getting that sophisticated to do that. So with that, I on signings, we often have this, and I think we've split the baby where somebody wants more of a starting salary than we want. We have all those different risk factors. And I'm very often splitting the baby, but can you get to a base or keep the base where it is and put everything in? God forbid the person makes it for 12 months. Right? Somebody in January. If you make it the year, it's a $70,000 a year. It's a very,
Right.
it's very, it really allows you different psychologically and win-win. They're in, they're not getting any money until the end.
So how many bonus treats does Scout get when Scout comes to the office with you? Does every office have a thing of treats for Scout?
It does have a thing of treats. He's good with everybody but the delivery guys. Delivery guys are not his friends. Um, so I think that when dealing with this, we're constantly trying to figure out what is that mix. And so, I think you avoid that. The slack is a bad thing. Something wasn't communicated. You did a 25% raise, and actually could be a third raise, a 1/3 raise from
Right.
75 to 100. So that should be pretty clear. That said, to me, one of the things you're sort of not struggling that I struggle with, but is that balance of what is upfront, what is bonus. Even if there is no bonus, there's always a gift or something nominal as a thank you. But it really became an issue, and it was interesting because the PI department historically, the numbers have caught up over the years, paid a slightly lesser salary, in my opinion, so that it was easier to justify that. But now imagine me having the conversation back with people where it was all in salary. So there, here I'm like, hey Jay, you should have told people on that raise. Nothing I could say is going to, no matter what I say in the beginning, if somebody else gets bonuses, a department, it really makes it tough and to distinguish.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a couple of different things, and I really need to dial this in as I go forward, because in years I have done no bonuses for lawyers. You make good money, you make well into six figures as a lawyer. Why should I have to give you a bonus? I've done the extra
I don't,
week of pay.
I don't think you do if you're doing it right. I mean, I treat people as a partner who's getting what they're getting and that they determine it. And that and again, it's
Well,
above market.
your situation is unique though, because it's a revenue split of retained business. So they know if they close two $10,000 cases this week,
Right.
they're getting 50% of
Right,
that if
and
they
look,
work it.
and over time, I'm starting to layer. On our next episode, I want to talk a little bit about, particularly the family law space, the idea of, and this could be done anywhere. We talk about the junior attorneys, teasing the next episode. We talk about junior attorneys who really shouldn't be going to court day one, and how can you assembly line work harder in criminal than other areas? PI is common, but how can you assembly line work to bring people in? So, spoiler alert, that's the
Right. So
next
we'll talk
episode.
about that in our next session. But before we wrap up today, I want to talk to you a little bit about, we've got the Perplexity browser is out. We've got ChatGPT launching a browser. Claude now has a desktop app, and clearly Google is losing some of its dominance in search. And the more browsers that come out, the more people are defaulting to AI. I don't know what percentage of the population and the demographics of the people that are defaulting to AI, but how is AI and these new platforms impacting search traffic? Because obviously it's got to be something that's if Google had 95% of volume of search traffic back in October of 2022, they're not at 95% now. They're
They're
probably
still
at
they're
like
still
70 or 80.
just below 90. Again, that was a big deal when they got
But
below 90.
but just below 90 is huge.
Yes and no. It is. And again, according to the Ahrefs conference recently, 2% of people are searching there. Now, again, as of the launch of this podcast, there is now ChatGPT search, no local, but there's search of websites. Great. It is changing. Google obviously is doing everything it can to protect that space. And when they add AI in as an answer, I think this is less the Wild West we saw in the late 90s when all these different browsers were out there. You know, it's going to be a while before my mother-in-law downloads something new on the computer. If anything, she's stuck with the Bing that came with a Dell computer, right? That's at best. So to me, what I'm watching is, where like who cares who the deliverer is? The fact that whether it's ChatGPT or whether it's Google with its own AI, to me, what's exciting to watch is how is AI search different than the traditional Google algorithm, and will the whole algorithm move with it because they're going to want to monetize it, or is it going to be this is AI search and this is the trusted Google algorithm that gives you answers that are better than the AI algorithm that may not be as. And again, how it goes. I think nobody's going to get rich betting against Google here, in that Google has the traffic. And then while ChatGPT is cool to you and me, as long as it's an AI search, if it's on the existing search browser, people are not going to download something separate to get the ChatGPT result if Google AI is giving you the answer you want.
Well, that's true. But here's an interesting thing, and I'm going to make a sort of an analogy that I don't know if it works, but do you remember? I I'm sure you do. There was I don't know if it was Jamaican or Haitian woman who was on TV late nights who would you'd call and she'd tell your fortune and she'd read the tarot cards or whatever. Remember Mistress Eileen or something like that? Do you remember? Do you remember that
There were a bunch of
toll free
people
number?
back in the day.
Okay, so all of those numbers, the adult phone things, their whole thing was get you on the line, keep you on the line for 20 minutes because they were billing you by the minute, and that's the thing. So they'd have long conversations with people and the like, and there was some FTC problems with that, and they got shut down and all this other stuff. But the interesting thing to me about a Google search versus an AI search is that a Google search, Google wants to give you the best answer right up front. That's always been sort of their core mission. Hey, you want this, this is the best answer to your question in organic position number one. Now they're throwing in LSAs, they're throwing in AI things, they've got the map back, but still, their whole message was number one is your best response, right?
It's going to
But
get
with
you
the
the
AI,
answer you want.
right, it gets you the answer you want. The AI stuff, though, is giving you an answer and then saying, I can do this, this, and this. And so AI is looking to engage people more with their answers, maybe forcing the refinement, adding options, pulling other data so that it has more of a colloquy with you than Google
Well,
does.
but that's today. I mean, in theory, as it learns, it may just like the Google algorithm built something. The AI algorithm could say, "Hey, take the entire Google algorithm and and then make it better." I mean, that's what's the sort of the mind blowing part, which is this is today. Imagine what it's like a year, 2 years from now, where it knows before you even sit down what you want.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like you got to wonder about where we are going with this stuff and how we can position ourselves now. I mean, one of the things that I recently did is I put out a new book, all about criminal trials. I got it right here. It's now available on Amazon. If you're a criminal lawyer, you can pick that up. But I'm trying to do the things that makes LLMs and AI products see me as authoritative because it's not like I can build links necessarily to get ChatGPT because the LLMs haven't put out their page rank thesis as to what matters. I mean, we do have some knowledge as to what they're going to in terms of directories and the like, but it's not as simple as being able to read a doctoral dissertation like it was at the beginning of Google, right?
Exactly. So I don't think we need an LLM to tell us that Jay is authoritative, but your point's well taken. And that the book is probably, a good hedge. Now, the question at some point will they be able to, hey, this was a self-published nonsense book versus this is Simon and Schuster? The jury's out as to how sophisticated it will get. but I like the way you're thinking. And I can't wait for, I'm jonesing. I know we got to go now, but I can't wait to get back. And we've been thinking a lot about summer programs and stacking work within the law firms and want to be able to make sure that we talk about that next.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us this week on the Law Firm Blueprint. Of course, you can take us on the go anywhere you want to go by subscribing to our podcast. Be sure to give us that 5-star review, and you can catch us live every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, live on LinkedIn, live in our Facebook group, the Law Firm Blueprint. That's going to do it for us today. I'm Jay Ruane. He is Seth Price. Bye for now.